Welcome to Exploring Axon, a podcast where we discuss Axon Framework, Axon Server, and their ecosystem. I am your host and the producer of this podcast, Sarah Torrey. Our conference this year is taking place in Amsterdam on September 28th. Prior to that date, we have an on-conference day scheduled on September 27th at the same location in Amsterdam. I hope you can all join us for these two wonderful events. We have a lot of exciting talks and sessions planned for everybody for both days. And during this session, I spoke with our co-founder, Allard Bauza, and the head of our developer relations, Milan Dyankov, about what they have planned with the rest of their teams and our marketing team as well to make these 2 days very special and beneficial for everybody to join. I hope to see you then, and let's have a listen to this conversation. Hi, Allard. Hi, Milan. Thank you so much for joining me, and welcome back to the show. So we have something really exciting to talk about today, which is what it is that we're doing this September. So usually in September, we have a really fun event, and I think we have some great plans for this year as well. With that said, we are talking about the conference, of course. Our annual conference is coming up this September. We have some exciting news, and we've changed the structure of the conference a bit as well. Milan, you will talk more about that as we come to the topic. But to start, Allard, can you tell everybody why it is that we're doing these conferences every year and plan for it way ahead of time? And is it a vendor conference? Is it not? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. We ask ourselves every year if we want to do that another year. But then when the conference comes and when it goes by the day after, we're all so excited about the outcome that is the moment where we decide there has to be another one. But if we do it more than once, people go crazy. So that's why it's an annual thing. And it actually started a long, long time ago when we did the Axon 2.0 release. And we just decided to launch a release party, and we had somebody over from a large Dutch corporate, the CIO, to basically coordinate a panel discussion. And the attendance wasn't, it was a good sized meetup, I would say, but still we were quite surprised by the number of people that showed up. But there was a really good vibe, so we decided to do that again for Axon 3. And later on, when we founded AxonIQ in 2017, we thought, hey, let's just do this again around, not so much around the release, but let's pick a good date to, again, just bring all Axon enthusiasts together and have a few of them on stage and talk about their experiences. And basically, it's about that knowledge sharing. And of course, after that, you ask the attendees, like, how did you perceive the day? Because it was a one-day conference, and they all said it was too short. There was so much. There was a lot of content in one day because we wanted to keep in one day. But they all thought it was very interesting. And to answer your question about the vendor conference, they all said it was a vendor conference because obviously we're a vendor, but it didn't feel like one. And that's because the stories that people share are just their personal experiences with an open source product, as well as the commercial versions is usually quite mixed. But we also had speakers that spoke about topics that are related to Axon, but not Axon specific. Right. So that combination was very valuable. And basically, we decided to do that every year. In the COVID years, we moved to an online format that was not very successful. Successful in the sense that, yes, we had attendance, but the vibe was completely different. That whole knowledge sharing experience was not the same as it was when doing it in person. So fortunately, we were able to go back in person, and we said it's either in person or it doesn't happen. Right. So last year was the first in-person conference again, and we decided to make it 2 days full of talks, workshops as well. and again we got the same feedback. So yeah, that's why
We
it's
keep
here to
doing it.
stay, right? And the
Yeah.
attendance grows all the time. The stories get more and more interesting over time as well. So I learn something new every year, which is really
Nice.
great.
So really, we just want to party once a year, have this big
Exactly.
party, and learn
That's
from
the
it too. Why
excuse, right?
not? Right?
Yes. That's the problem
Have a
with a
couple.
one-day conference, right? There's no party in the
It's
middle
not
of the two
long
days.
enough. You
Yes,
can't have more beers. Right?
exactly.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask you a question, which you did answer it partially, but so you mentioned of course, the interaction and the kind of connection that you have when you are doing an in-person event. Of course, is very different from when you're doing it virtual. Where um, in virtual conferences or even meetups, a lot of times the cameras are off. You don't know who's actually there, or if your talk is making a difference or anything like that. So it's of course very different. But why not do a hybrid? And make it maybe in a sense more accessible to others who can't join in person.
Yeah, that's always a topic for discussion. So I have to answer
Hmm.
this one in well from two contexts to stay in the DDD terminology. But from the context as a speaker, my best experiences are all in person
Of course.
talks.
Yeah.
And it is, well, to some extent just the delivery of a talk where you can actually see the people. I try to be funny in
Well,
my
and you
talks
get
as
the
well.
energy of the room
You
as you're
get
talking. It's
feedback,
important.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And video gives you a little bit of feedback if you see their faces, but
Mhm.
when you're in a room and you talk and you say something that you expect will trigger the audience, you always get a bit of, there's always a little mumble in the room or there's something, so you always get a little bit of feedback.
Mhm.
Online, you don't get that at all. And
Right.
if I feel that, imagine somebody who's not a frequent speaker, and we're asking,
Mhm.
a customer of ours or somebody who wants to share their experience, and we're asking them to go through that experience and
Mhm.
share their story with no feedback. I mean,
Yeah.
that is not the kind of experience that I would like others to have. So
Sure.
that's why we'd like to have the speakers at least, available in person. And then it might be very bad to say this. I'm not sure if this is being recorded, but a
It is.
conference, only a small portion of the value of a conference is in the sessions.
Hmm.
I personally see a lot of value of conferences in the hallways of a conference.
Exactly.
And that's where discussions start. And very often the talks of our speakers, they ignite the discussions that then start at in those hallways. So
Yeah.
if you do a talk as a speaker, you get people coming to you to ask a question that didn't or couldn't ask during the Q&A. So that gives you a lot of extra vibe as well. So
Mhm.
that said, when we do a hybrid, we do record all of the sessions and we do make them available online. So people that cannot join, they can still see the talks. But I don't know of any solution that can have a proper hybrid experience where people can walk around and either virtually and
Yeah.
physically, mixed.
Yeah.
Other than
And
having
we've
these little
tried a few of
robots
them.
walk around. Yeah.
Exactly. And we've tried a few of them. There's some, cool platforms where, the sound gets a little bit louder as you quote unquote get closer to somebody to talk to. So they kind of try to mimic that kind of interaction. But yeah, as you mentioned, it's of course not the same. And as far as the knowledge sharing, yeah, we do have all of the videos, even from last year's conference, and they're all available online so that folks
And
can
we try
still
to publish
learn.
them faster or
Yeah.
sooner, right? So we do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
practicing that. Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned something that I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into, which was the hallway discussions. So those hallway discussions, of course, spark a lot of different conversations and interests and ideas as well, in terms of, hey, why not try something in terms of either feature implementations or just industry standards or newest technology and things like that. And it always is a nice place to have these conversations in order to better ourselves or have other talks next year. That's really great. But of course, those
we also noticed another thing with our particular venue. For instance, last year those hallways were rather narrow, and so we had a lot of traffic jam a lot of times. But aside from that, you also have these scheduled talks that are particularly for a specific time that people have to be present to listen to those talks, or workshops for that matter. And so those hallway conversations couldn't go on for as long as the folks wanted to have them. So then we decided to do something a little bit different. So what did we decide to do this year?
So that's yeah. As you said, we wanted to give more room for hallway discussion. So we thought, why not just have an entire day where we just have a hallway as a figure of speech, and actually
Hopefully not in
Milan
that
is
narrow hallway. Hopefully a little bit
no.
wider
We'll have
space.
a proper venue, and we're going to spend an entire day on that. And Milan has a lot of experience with that, so I'll let him explain what the
Yes.
idea is and how it came to be. Yeah.
Milan, what are you up to?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. Well, the thing I'm up to, or we are up to actually, because it's not me. I mean, I try to be kind of the one that combines all the effort together, but there's a lot of people involved into organizing it. It's a non-conference,
What is
which
an
is
unconference?
well, it's the opposite of a conference, right?
The un.
Yeah, well, so that's basically to piggyback on what Art said already. The idea of a non-conference is that you have the focus on this hallway discussions or on discussions in general, because and just move them from the hallway to the main room. And there's fundamental difference because when you have a conference, and it doesn't go for our conference, it goes for any conference, you typically have people submitting some topics, and then you have some sort of a program committee that goes through those suggestions and then pick topics. And if you talk to conference organizers all over the world, the number one challenge they face is to pick the very few of the many topics that are being submitted, right? And so at the end of the day, us it doesn't matter how hard you try to do to make it like non-vendor specific or open to everyone. It's still this body that faces this hard challenges to pick a few of the many and essentially set the agenda. All right, and
Yeah.
then you know. All the program committees I know, they do their best, right? But it's at the end of the day, it's some other people's decision about what gets on stage, what we discuss, right?
Yeah, and of
Um,
course the time is limited because you have, a day of
exactly.
8 slots, for instance, right? There's so much you can put in there.
Exactly. That's the time constraint is there, but it's also a decision, and sometimes it is easy to blame those people. Like, okay,
Hmm.
I didn't like, I don't know, or I wanted to hear about other things, right? And it's this program committee that made this decision, and it started thinking about like what they had in mind, why they choose this and not that, and what not. And so the
Right.
unconference is an event that aims to solve that problem. It basically says, okay, let's just have a conversation about the topics that the people in the room are interested in.
Hmm.
And so essentially, how it works is we don't have an agenda, we just have slots.
Yeah.
If you go to the DrivUn, which is the name of the unconference website, what you will see is you will see that there are empty slots. Like
Hmm.
we have slots from this time to this time, but there is no topic, there's no speaker, there is no information what's going to be presented, quote unquote,
Hmm.
because that will be determined in the morning of that day when we all gather in that room, and then everyone in that room would be able to propose a topic, and that could be a topic that they are experts in and have information or experience to share, or that could be a topic that they're simply interested in and expect other people to share their knowledge and experience. and
Hmm.
and so it's not reserved by quote unquote qualified speakers,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the other thing that you have with conferences. conferences wants to ensure high quality. So one of the criteria is we want good speakers, like with
Hmm.
proven track records and whatnot. And the unconference is the opposite. If you have knowledge about a topic, or you want to get knowledge about a topic, just tell people you want to, or you do,
Yeah.
and see what's the interest. Like maybe you find like-minded people who have more experience than you, or maybe you find like-minded people who are willing to learn from you,
Yeah.
right? And then we vote, or we organize those topics into the slots, and then everyone is free to attend whichever slot resonates with their own experience and needs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really cool idea, and I have a couple of questions. But Allard, I think you had a
Yeah, what
comment
I,
as well.
I, I wanted to add a little thing is that what I really like about about unconferences is if you look at the way the direction people face. In a general conference, there's one person facing one way and then 200 facing the other way.
Right.
So it's really one-way traffic. Whereas in an unconference, of course, it's mixed, and it depends on the kind of topic. If somebody says, "Hey, I want to talk about this," who wants to listen? But
Hmm.
generally, what you see is more circles.
Yeah.
You see people facing all 360 degrees, and it's not just one-way communication. People it tend to be more open conversation. So even as a speaker, you get even more feedback that way because you start a discussion about the topic that you are maybe a lot about. But other people will probably know something about that topic as well. So even if you know a lot about something, it is worth coming to those conferences because you will be knowing more about it when you walk away.
So it's a
That's
lot more knowledge sharing than just knowledge receiving, you know,
correct.
and that's really neat. And I like what you mentioned, Milan, about a lot of times committees decide on who is going to be a speaker for a specific conference, because a lot of times when these applications are sent, and I found myself in several of those situations where I'm not as, for instance, experienced of a speaker or as frequent of a speaker, and my talk, for instance, doesn't get accepted because I'm competing with somebody who is much more prominent in the field. So this gives a really good opportunity for those who, as Allard mentioned earlier, not an experienced speaker or wants to try something new. And, you mentioned as well, Milan, you want to just learn about it as well. This gives that opportunity to really be able to try that out and either speak about that topic or just learn from others that you might be interested in. One of the
That is
questions that yeah, go ahead.
I said that is correct, and that's why we don't talk about speakers at an conference,
Hmm.
because no one has the role of "I will be speaking to you." Even if you
Yeah.
propose a session and there is an interest in that session is literally a conversation.
Hmm. Exactly.
There is someone who needs to kind of take notes or kind of summarize the conversation at the end, but there is no designated speaker role as
Yeah.
such.
You
Right.
may
So
have
in that
an
sense,
MC, for instance. Yeah.
that is not a good practice for becoming a speaker, right?
Sure.
But in terms of value, in terms of what you get out of it as a software professional, in this particular case, because it's software related
Mhm.
on conference, it gives you a lot more, because you are actually interacting with people who are working on real things, with real problems and with real challenges,
Mhm.
and sometimes, like Allard said, you may have a lot of experience in the field, but those conversations open your eyes up for things that you may have not be able to see otherwise.
Exactly. So you did mention that the morning of the unconference, these topics will be decided on. Can you share what the process is going to be like? Is it everybody puts a sticky note and people vote on it, or how does that work? Or do they submit ideas ahead of time online?
Well, so there are several approaches, and in all honesty, we still haven't decided which one exactly we will use for DrivUn.
Yeah, fair
Um,
enough.
but it generally, the most like democratic approach is that you have what is called a marketplace, And so all the proposals go on the marketplace. And now that could be sticky notes, that could be some sort of application, and, tool wise, it doesn't matter what the tool is. And then all the people vote. They have limited number of votes they can use to vote for different sessions. And then you organize that into like the most voted sessions go into the actual agenda. Now that works typically very well when there is enough time, but when you do it in a more structured way, this is a time-consuming process. And some unconferences, they basically allow you to propose a session and then just go and pick a time slot and say, okay, I want to discuss with people this topic at this time, right? And we try to have enough time slots to cover all the potential proposals, right? But then there's the risk that you may run out of time slots, right? And potentially a better topic is going to be left out because someone already reserved the slots before. So we're still in discussion how exactly to organize the process. But it's going to be something in between those lines.
Yeah, very good. I'm sensing this may become a little bit of a more than a one-day unconference too, maybe in the future, because there's so many good topics that I would want to talk about that don't fit in a one day. So yeah. I think it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope this is going to be the case here, because every unconference I've been at has ended with me feeling like, gosh, I wish there was one more day. Right. And I think that is a good thing, because I don't imagine myself being in a, I don't know, 2 weeks unconference, right? I think at some point in time, there is this upper limit of how much time you can spend talking to.
You've had enough of it. Yes.
Yeah. But certainly I think it's a good thing if the attendees leave with the feeling that they learned a lot and there was more to learn, or they contributed a lot and there is more to contribute. I think that's a good thing ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. So about the name, I wanted to ask you, so the name is DrivUn. The on part of it is, of course, the on conference, but what about the driv? What are we driving? Driving?
That is a long answer to that.
How long do we need?
I'll try to summarize it, but essentially, first thing when we came up with the idea of DrivUn was let's allow our community, and by our community, and I had I shouldn't say that because it's not something we own, but I just like a better word in English. But the community around Axonic technologies, open source technologies, is what I mean. And let allow those people to meet, to have these conversations, to share ideas and whatnot. But then we start thinking that there are actually other people in that wider community that are dealing with the same challenges, and they have Axonic, Axon Framework, Axon Server came to solve a particular problem, which is related to domain-driven design, event sourcing, secure RAS. And we are, I'd say, good at solving that problem, right? But that doesn't mean we're the only ones trying to solve that problem, right? There are other people out there who also try to solve that problem in different ways, right? And so we started thinking that it would be a good thing in general to allow people to have conversations about the problem space rather than the particular attempt to solve the challenges in that problem space. And so we started to looking at what that problem space is. And that is a lot about domain-driven design, about event-driven architectures, about message-driven systems, and the word that keep repeating in all those is driven, right? And I don't know why, but that just happened to be the case. And then we just said, okay, so we're all driven by the same ideas, right? So let's make an unconference that is a people-driven conference. Let's just focus on the people. Let's not judge them by how they decided to approach the challenges they face, let's just appreciate the fact that they're trying to solve the same challenges we try to solve, and
Yeah.
let's invite everyone and have a conversation and learn from each other. Right, and I think ultimately that is going to be beneficial for everyone working in that space, not
Mhm.
only for our company or for our particular solutions, but also for people who are trying to solve the same problems. We There is a lot to share, there is a lot to learn from each other, and we certainly hope to bring all these people together in a friendly environment and have these open conversations about how to make this type of software development, if you will, because I didn't really know how to group it together. But this approach to building complex distributed software applications, let's share our experiences. Let's see where we move things from here. Like, what's the next big thing we all can contribute to. And then that's the idea. And then the common denominator was the word driven.
Driven.
Right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
and we really wanted to make it like people driven, not really a product or a vendor driven.
Mhm.
And that's why the name of the conference is called DrivUn, and because it's an unconference, that's why it ends with UN.
Exactly. That's a great answer. Thank you, Milan. That's yeah, lots of exciting things to share and learn about. I'm really looking forward to it. Um, so kind of wrapping the topic up a little bit, but not exactly all the way. I want to go back to you, Allard, and ask about the conference a little bit and the sessions. Do we know how many sessions we have? What kind of talks we're expecting? Can you give us a little
Yeah,
glimpse
well,
into what's to come?
when Milan was talking about the program committee, right, receiving too many calls for papers or proposals
Were
and
you
having to
that
select
committee?
the few, yes, and I've been part of that committee for other conferences, and that was a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that particular conference at the time was, inviting mostly the speakers, but there's so many candidates, and what you find yourself just receiving, and even we did a call for papers, and we thought, the order of magnitude of papers we received was expected to be significantly lower than other conferences, but I was, let's say, positively disappointed. uh, we got way too many for the number of slots that we have. I don't know out of the top of my head how many we have in total, but the the difficulty is to find a balance, and that's why you sometimes have to reject really good talks,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to accept something that others might perceive as less, not as good as the one I proposed, so how come that one
Hmm.
goes in and not mine? And it's
Yeah.
about creating a little bit of a balance in the topic, and this is exactly what Milan is referring to. Is, as a program committee, you're trying to find this balance in your messaging. That means you're selecting, right?
Right.
And that's the advantage of an unconference. You don't have that selection by a single group, who of course is always, no matter how you see it, they're always biased.
Of course.
So what we're doing, and we're still, we're in conversation with certain speakers that we know have a really interesting topic, but that we can't announce yet. But it will be a very good balance of some of the customers that we have, that have used our products for a while and can share the good and the bad of doing that. Then there's
Hmm.
always, we always ask them, don't always share the happy path. Also, especially share the struggles that you faced, because we just know that if you use this kind of software, then it's quite different from what we're used to. So there must be road bumps you've hit, or there must be, must have bumped your head somewhere at some point. It must have hurt, and what did you do to circumvent that problem? We want to hear those stories as well. I say we, but we want our audience to hear those stories as well,
Right.
because
Right.
they can learn from that. So um, and we have a few talks that are a little bit outside of the, let's say, the Axon bubble. So we have, I know we have somebody from Solace talking at our
Hmm.
conference as
Nice.
well. Well, they,
Hmm.
they obviously are in the event-driven space as
Yes.
well. But some people perceive us as competitors, but when we talk to them, we're definitely not. They have a different solution for a different problem, but it's also in the event-driven space, right?
Right, right.
And yeah, and I guess the keynote is something I'm able to announce as well. A good friend of mine, Josh Long, will be there to kick off the second day, which is really exciting. He's always a fun speaker. But we just realized that, well, the previous podcast session was about that as well. We have a
Exactly.
long history with him, or I have quite a long history with him. I think since 2010, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about that history on stage to get that story out. So that should be good fun.
Yeah, that's a good story for sure. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and yeah, he's fun to listen to during his talk. So that's awesome.
He's also
Very
fun
good.
to interact with. So
Yes, he is.
I certainly hope he's going to be also joining the DrivUn Unconference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as I know, he is. So yeah, that's going to be great. So lots of exciting things and exciting folks joining. So that's really great. Anything else that you two want to share about the unconference or the conference, or any reasons why you think people should attend if they're kind of thinking about it and they're unsure?
Yeah, what I said in the very beginning, right? The feedback that we got from other people, from previous attendees, is that it doesn't feel like a vendor conference. So you're not going home with a feeling of, oh, they've been selling me this stupid product all those 2 days, right? It's more we care about information sharing. I mean, I'm a developer at heart, so is Milan. So we're heavily involved in the organization. So we realize that people are there to gather or to share knowledge. That's the most important. But and so it's about the broader knowledge. So I would say whether you're just an Axon enthusiast and you want to learn more about what we do, well, that's great. The conference you'll get to hear about what we are doing. Right, we'll open up our kitchen a little bit and show us what we're working on in the near future. But it's also just the stories of other people just working in the event-driven space and talking about what problems did they have, and whether they use tool X or Y doesn't really matter. Even if you're using another tool than they are, you can still learn a lot from others' experiences. So
exactly.
Even if you're not looking for or interested in Axon specifically, there will be a lot of information that is very valuable. And then I'm talking about the conference, right? Obviously, in the unconference, it's way more because it's not about any specific product at all.
Right.
So I've seen some attendees from other organizations subscribing to or getting tickets for the unconference that are that have very different opinions on things than we do, and which is great. Which gives you, as an attendee, gives you a 360-degree view of the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, as far as the unconference, the DrivUn project is concerned, I think that's even more so. I mean, it's by nature. Like, I mean, we deliberately reach out to some people who we know are. I really don't want to use that word, but that's what is probably commonly said, like the names in the space, because they're people who are recognized for their work. All right, and when I say names, it's not like they're just popular because of being popular, but they actually did quite a valuable work. Whether that is in the modeling space, because we kind of try to cover the entire space from like how do you design and model applications, then how do you actually build them, how do you deploy them, how do you maintain them, and whatnot. And so
discovery to production all the way.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of people who have contributed to that space, ideas and solutions and products, and we are deliberately trying to reach to those people and tell them that we want to have that conversation. And so from attendee, I can't announce it yet, but we will be announcing it in the following weeks. Some of those people who have confirmed that they will attend DrivUn. And once we start doing that, there's going to be pretty obvious that this is like a wide spectrum.
Yeah.
Right. And we want, and so from attendee perspective, it's also a unique opportunity to actually sit next to or in front of, or face someone who actually has spent their bigger time of their professional career contributing to the space that you're developing your applications in, and
Hmm.
ask them questions and have an advice from them. Like
Yeah.
I would quote unquote kill 10, 20 years ago to have that opportunity.
Right.
um, right. So I think that is also important. And then we also don't want to make it like a gathering for the experts only,
Hmm.
right? So
Yes.
there is no qualification exam, right? No one tells you like you can't attend if you unless you have 10 years of experience or so. So it's going to be all sorts of people, and with a common goal. We
Hmm.
want to build better software, and we want to have a conversation about how different people are doing it. And
Hmm.
I think that is the number one reason to attend.
Yeah.
And then,
Awesome.
as this is the first edition of DrivUn, I have to admit it is challenging, like because we can't really show like look how great it was last year, and so I guess the only thing we could do at this point is asking people to trust us that we all of us are doing our best to make this event really interesting and really valuable in terms of information, and in terms of expertise that can be shared there.
Yeah. I think
It is pretty
it's a really great
simple.
opportunity.
If you're listening to this podcast right now,
Just come.
it means you're interested in this space, which
Yes.
means that Driven is the right place to get more knowledge. I mean,
Exactly.
that's
The interaction, I think the interactive part alone is a really great opportunity to learn and also share. And I think that that in it itself is a really huge advantage to join. So yes,
And
definitely
also, one
recommend.
last thing is from my personal experience, the contacts that I have in that space that I've had for many years, most of them actually come from unconferences, because this is
Yeah.
really the space where you can create a much I'd say long-lasting connections with
Yeah.
other professionals than a usual conference.
Yeah, that makes sense because you that's an opportunity for you to have a bigger and more in-depth conversation with folks and really spend some time, some quality time with them, as opposed to sitting in a session and listening to it and then having to leave and move on to another session. So with that said, um, when is it and where is it?
yes, of course. You have to be at the right place at the right time,
At the
right?
right time,
Otherwise, there's no
exactly.
unconference. We need people
Just come to our own
in the
conference, but
same
we don't
room.
know when it is exactly.
Obviously, if you go to the AxonIQ website, you'll find the registration form and everything you need, and more details. But it is in Amsterdam because it's traditionally in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Except for the very first release the release party that I spoke about, that one was in a different city. But other than that, everything was in
Still
Amsterdam.
in the Netherlands, or
In the
was it outside?
Netherlands,
Oh, okay,
yes.
okay.
No, it was still in the Netherlands.
Keeping the tradition.
So keeping that tradition, and it is on September 27 and 28, which is a Wednesday and a Thursday. So you can either choose to travel home on Friday, be home for the weekend, or stick around Amsterdam. It's good fun and definitely worth spending a few
With the
days in.
visit,
So
yeah, for sure.
and so 27 and 28th of September.
Yeah.
And
So the
27th is the unconference. Yes.
27 is
Go
on
ahead.
conference.
and Axonic conference is on 28.
Exactly. I'll go ahead and share the links as well in the notes of the podcast, so we can direct everybody to the right places. Fantastic. Thank you both so much for joining me and explaining about what we're going to do in September and some of the fun things we're planning on
We
sharing and
actually didn't
presenting.
talk about the fun things, and it's probably worth mentioning
We,
that it's
we
not
did
going
say
to be
we're going to
only
do
learn. There is going to be fun as well, and I can't tell right now what it will be, but trust me, there is going to be a significant part related to actually having fun.
Having fun. Okay. We did talk about it's a 2-day long party, but you actually meant really we're gonna party and have some fun. That's awesome.
There might
Really
be a
good.
little bit of time to sleep in the middle of it. Yeah,
A little bit, just a couple hours.
you don't need that much.
Power nap and come back.
Yes.
Exactly. Awesome. Really good. Really looking forward to it, guys. Thanks again. And yeah, until next time, have a great day.
Bye.
So,
I hope you enjoyed the talk with Allard and Milan. Please join us at our conference and on conference this year, and I hope to see you all there.